I'm Wendy Hunt. I'm president of the Greater Merrimack-Souhegan Valley Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also the board chair of NACE, which is the acronym for the New Hampshire State Group. Today, we will be talking to the SBDC about how the CARES Act can help your business with advisors Julie Glossner and Andrea O'Brien. I'll start with Julie. I'll give you a quick bio on Julie so you know where all of her expertise comes from. She manages the business advising team that covers Franklin to Nashua and west to Salem, including Concord and Manchester. She joined the New Hampshire SBDC in 2015 as a business advisor and worked in Manchester and Nashua to help clients successfully launch their businesses. She brings past experience with budgets, payroll, human resources, and she's developed an expertise in the STTR federal proposal process and has worked with many high-tech clients. Some of Julie's prior business roles include financial analyst, grants administrator, project director, and finance director at various educational institutions. She also worked with the Office of Economic Initiatives, a former program of NH SBDC, and her education includes a BS from the university and an MBA from the University of Pittsburgh. Julie, take it away.
All right, well, thank you, and welcome everyone. So the Merrimack Valley is, as Wendy said, starts in Franklin and goes down to Nashua and Salem. And so Andrea and I, along with two other business advisors, work in this territory, and we just hired someone else, Chuck Gilboy, who started yesterday. So we're really excited to be in this area and help businesses with their planning. And right now, unfortunately, when there's crisis mode, we're also here to help, and we get funding from the SBA and from in the state of New Hampshire, the the Department of Business and Economic Affairs. So that enables us to be able to provide a free resource to businesses, and we have a website that has great information on it as well. We do e-learning classes. We're starting webinars that we'll be presenting next week on the PPP calculation and how to figure that out. We're going to roll out a cash flow webinar and then some marketing in the future. So if you want to get more information about what programs we're offering, go to our website. There's a Corona website, there's a link that you can click on that will take you to the page that has all the information about the resources that we currently have available there. And it gets updated regularly, and we are doing weekly emails starting today. There's another one coming out, so if you'd like to get those weekly emails, please sign up for them. And I will hand it over to Andrea to add more to what I just said.
Okay, well, I would just like to add that anybody on the call or hears this webinar, please sign up for our newsletter. That's how we push information out to the small business community, as well as our Facebook page. So if you want to stay in the loop, do those two things. And so recently, we've really been focusing all our efforts to address the CARES Act, just why you guys are listening today, and to get a full understanding or better understanding as to what the payroll protection program can give you versus the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So
let me do a quick bio on Andrea too. Andrea has been with the SBDC since 1998 in Merrimack Valley. She's a region business advisor and director of the statewide business sustainability program. She works with Manchester area clients and helps SBDC clients across the state for stronger companies by identifying a company's risk of environmental protocols and practices, refining their management practices to achieve practical and sustainable business operations. She has 30 years of serving in business and industry in the environmental management field. She's held positions with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, has been a consultant to many financial institutions, and her prior work experience includes a senior associate engineer at IBM, where she developed the company's hazardous waste management program in Burlington, Vermont, Poughkeepsie, New York. Take it away, Andrea.
Well, I would just like to add that for the last 20-something years, I've been advising small businesses on matters like cash flow and other financial things that are important to you.
Typically, who qualifies to get the assistance and expertise from the SBDC? Does it have to be a certain number of employees, or when you get to a certain point, it's too big of a company, or who qualifies for your help?
Go for
So
it, Julie.
companies of 500 employees or fewer is it's the SBA definition for what a small business is. But we typically here in New Hampshire, tend to work with companies maybe 100 or fewer. And on average, there may be 10 employees, companies that have 10 employees. So it varies. We have, all different industries, obviously, and we also have, varying sizes. But we do see a lot of sole proprietors as well, or sole entrepreneurs, as they call them now.
Right. And other than, obviously you're offering COVID-19 assistance because these are unprecedented times. I hate that expression, but I know no other way to describe it. But typically, would you go from, a company that has an idea and run with that idea with them to make their dreams a reality of a business? Or would you also take a company and take them to the next level? Is that typically what SBDC does?
Andrew and I are going to go back and forth, so Andrew's going to answer this one.
Okay. Yeah, we work with companies at every stage, whether you're starting up. It's a great time to contact an advisor before you've made any big mistakes and you're really in the throes of business planning, or whether you've already started and you're hitting some road bumps. Sometimes it's really helpful to, get another set of eyes to discuss it and understand what you think the problem is may not actually be the problem. And the way I frame it, every business that's happy is happy in the same way. They're making money. Every business that's unhappy is unhappy in their very own special way. And we really try to get to the heart of that, no matter what stage of business they're in. Mostly we like to help with growth. That's always a good sign.
That's great. Well, now let's shift gears and fast forward to the COVID-19 crisis and what SBDC can do to help businesses that contact you. Julie, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So since the middle of March 18th, the EIDL loan was open and available for New Hampshire businesses to apply. And that's a type of loan different than the CARES Act. It started before that. And since that time, businesses, I want to start by saying every day things are changing and evolving. So what information might be good in the morning sometimes has changed already. And our organization is in direct contact with SBA regularly. Liz Gray is the state director, and she is in touch with Rachel Roderick from the New Hampshire SBA, but also she's in contact with the America's SBDC, which is our kind of parent organization who is in DC and gets a lot of updates from the DC SBA. So we have a lot of good resources, and I would like to also recommend that if you're going to quote something or use any information, make sure it's a reliable source. So going to the SBA or our website, who we quote the SBA, is a good place to go, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so what we try to do is get the best information and keep it updated on our website. One of the things that we do have is a comparison chart that the America's SBDC provided, and it's comparing the EIDL loan. It's comparing different aspects that are out there, bridge loans, the PPP. It's comparing if you had an existing 7A loan before the crisis happened back in the middle of, in March is really when it started affecting the businesses, but February is what they're saying. That chart can help you navigate it a little bit, but really the SBDC comes in and is very valuable to individual businesses when we can sit and talk with you on a regular basis for your own business, and not in a webinar setting where you can ask questions and we can get to know your specific issues and try to help you navigate through it, because all programs aren't going to be right for everyone. We have certain recommendations, but then we like to try to narrow down what's the right thing for each individual business.
Right, and certain advisors take care of certain parts of the state, and I did list that as part of this Zoom invitation. But if you go on your website and look under locations, that's where people would put their zip code to see which advisor they should be contacting, correct?
Right. Yeah. So for Merrimack Valley, there is a place, if you put in your town, it'll take you there, and then you're requesting business advising, and that will put you in our queue. That's the fastest way to get to be able to see someone or talk to someone in this day and age. We're trying to be very quick at turnaround time so that we can schedule a meeting quickly, because we know that businesses, have a lot of stress and anxiety around what's going on. So going to the website, putting in, there's a little form you'll need to fill out. We call it it's our electronic request for counseling form. You fill that out, we'll get notified that there's people are looking for assistance. So we recommend that you do that. And then within a couple of days, you'll get an email or a phone call. We usually email someone, see when a good time is to talk, and then we'll schedule the time to have a conversation. Yesterday, I spoke to a business, and she's, going through the coronavirus for her business and having some downturn on it, obviously, but she wanted to talk about marketing and how, like, during this time, what could she be doing to talk about or thinking about to try to keep her name out there and her business viable in the future. And so many people are cutting marketing right now, but it really is important. So not only can we talk about the different programs that are out there to help small businesses, but we can also talk to you about your response right now and how you're dealing with reaching out to the public or pivoting your business idea or offering of what you have currently.
And another topic was brought up by Governor Sununu about a week ago of what's your new model. So is that something you could also help with? I know that networking is what kind of clicked my brain into that question. But how are you kind of reinventing yourself right now to continue your business, whether you're open or not? Andrea, maybe you could hit
sure.
that.
Yes, it's very important to be able to, and the term is pivot. If you have to pivot, to imagine your business a little differently as to what is the path for you to move into a new market, assist maybe a new customer base. I'm working with a small manufacturer that does engraving, and she's been able to appeal to the state, make her services known to the state, and now she's going to be manufacturing some medical equipment, which she's never done before. And so I think that is really what businesses need to do if they can't bring a new product to market, and that's very difficult. If you're retail, pivot to online. If you don't have an online market at this point in your retail, that's very difficult. If you're a service organization, be able to pivot a new technology into your business plan, like Zoom or Skype, something like that. As we maybe hear from some of you, we'll get a better sense as to what kind of services and goods you do, and maybe we can talk about that specifically.
And I think that's a perfect segue into opening it up for questions. Liz is going to pop open everybody's microphone. And I think the easiest way would be if you raise your hand, or if you want me to go along and just call on people if you have a question or not. That seems to be a little more efficient if Liz is ready to go. Everybody's unmuted. I don't think Kim is.
I am now.
Okay. Okay. Mark Constable, do you have a question?
I do not. I'm just listening.
Okay. Becky Tripp, do you have a question?
Oh, wow. Hi. Yes, so we are one of the successful few who submitted our application last Friday for the payroll protection loan, and were accepted on Monday and had all our funds in our checking account on Tuesday. So that has worked very nicely for us.
Yes.
Really, congratulations.
Yes. So, a success story. So it can happen for you too. My question is about other products, like you've mentioned the EIDL. Is that the $10,000 one? Or is that something else yet?
Julie, you want?
Yeah, so originally when the EIDL came out, that the 10,000 is like an advance that you can
Yeah.
get. So if you haven't applied for it, you should, but know that it's up to $10,000. It depends on the number of employees you have.
Mhm.
So if you have 5 employees, you may only get $5,000 instead of $10,000. And that money is a grant and you don't have to pay it back. If you get,
Okay.
so, and there is a little wrinkle, and I started to say, so this stuff is evolving. So if you get the 5, say you got the whole $10,000, that money, if you get PPP, I believe
Yes.
that goes over towards your forgiveness of the PPP. So you kind of get a credit of the 10,000, and so your amount of forgiveness is less. Does that make sense? So that's why they're calling it a loan advance.
Yeah,
It's a
when I
little,
read
it
about,
is very confusing. I'm not gonna say it's a little confusing.
when I first read about it,
And what's happened too is as the SBA has had to take the law and make it into practical everyday, this is how it's going to work. They call it guidance, right? They've had to adjust things as they go forward. And so on my call this morning, you know, one of the things that's currently in the law is it's 8 weeks is what they've said. But now, according to Representative Pappas, they're going to be looking at making it more like 5 to 6 months as opposed to 8 weeks, which is 2 months, right? So they're realizing there's some issues. So there's going to be more changes. So it's an evolving thing. And he said on the call that in a couple of weeks, they're hoping to have this passed. So once it's passed, though, it again will take time to get the guidance from SBA into practical terms of how it's going to actually help small businesses. But as the SBDC, we recommend people apply for both, usually. Apply for PPP if that's appropriate for your business, and request that EIDL loan. And in the past, it took a bit of time to get that loan or grant advance. I think going forward, let's hope it's going to be a little bit faster. We just heard that people applied a couple weeks ago. We're just getting their monies. So definitely better than that, but 5 days, you know, it's been more like 2 weeks.
Okay. Kim, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay. Robin?
Yes. So far, I don't believe that there are any products, shall we call it, that apply to my situation as a solo. I'm an attorney. I'm a sole practitioner. I don't have any employees. Are either of you or any of you aware of any programs that I might be looking into?
Well, what I've heard, and Julie obviously add to this, is that starting today, sole proprietors and 1099 businesses can apply for the PPP. I think the key thing to remember is, as a sole proprietor, you know, your draw is your payroll.
Yes.
And you know, if you haven't been taking a draw, some people don't take a draw because it's just the time isn't right. That is difficult to overcome because you do have to show that you've been profitable. I mean, that you've actually taken some money from your business and you depend on that. So that can be a glitch. They look for the PPP, it's, you know, February 15th to June 30th, 2019.
Okay.
And if that was a slow period, you can shift that to the month prior to, I think it's January 31st back. So I think there's some wiggle room with that. The banks have you know, with the PPP, money is going from the Treasury to the bank to you. So there's that important connection to the bank, and they're going to have their own rules and requirements that are very special to them. And so they might, that's a good question for the bank as well. Will you accept a different set of dates? But typically it's February 15th to June 30th to look at an average monthly payroll.
Thank you.
Can I add some stuff to that? So I would recommend, if you're slow, if you're not having any business, maybe applying for unemployment right now, because independent contractors or entrepreneurs, sole entrepreneurs can, and that will help in the interim. And then the other thing is, I would recommend starting next Tuesday at 1 p.m. we're going to be doing our webinar on calculating the PPP. And I think resources are going to go on our website. We have a calculation, a spreadsheet that you can use to help calculate as well. I was on a webinar yesterday, and what they suggested too, like banks, they have download the SBA application for PPP so you can look at the questions they're going to ask. And then also banks might have their own. So having all your information gathered before you apply or talk to the bank, that can be helpful to speed it up. But the fact that you were able to get it done so quickly, Becky, that's awesome. But the more you have prepared will help you. So having that calculation ready, and then if you end up getting the PPP, you would have to stop unemployment. So you have to figure out which is best for you. And that's some of these programs, they're not all met. Not everyone will want to take each of the programs.
Right.
Okay, David Ayers, do you have a question?
Yeah, we've applied for, from what I understand, just about everything now, and haven't heard even so much as a confirmation from quite a few of these things. And we're a little concerned that either we didn't do something correctly or something, I don't know what's missing. So I'm just curious if anyone else has had that circumstance. Our PPP has been applied for through Citizens Bank, and we haven't heard back from them yet, other than that they're looking into it or whatever that means. We've applied for the EIDL, and so I'm just curious what the updates or whatever advice is on that.
Yeah, it's so the EIDL had some difficulty initiating. They went through a couple of relaunches, and depending on when you applied, if you applied very early on, you might have to reapply. You should have gotten a confirmation number, but I have heard of businesses exactly in your position where we don't have a confirmation number. Well, how do I check? And there is no easy way to check. We have a phone number, and that you can call, but it's probably difficult getting through. So understand when you applied for the EIDL, if it was early on and you had to upload documents, I would advise going back in and reapplying.
Okay.
Also, we suggest taking a screenshot of every web page, every page you're on, because there isn't an opportunity, I don't think, to save a document.
That's great.
Okay.
That's great advice. Dean, do you have something?
No, I just thought I would come and see how the small businesses were being affected. As the town administrator, I'm concerned, and I wondered. It's interesting. I'm glad to hear that some people are doing well with it, and sorry to hear that some people aren't doing so well with it. And I suspect that'll continue. But as we move forward, there's not much we can do. But certainly, if there is anything we can do, please let us know.
Okay. Tom Sapienza, do you have a question? Tom, is Tom there? Okay. Let's go on to Chris Young.
I don't have any questions.
No questions?
I'm good.
Okay,
I was going to say, no questions, wants, needs, desires. What do you know?
Mark Bellevue.
Yeah, I have a couple of small ones. First is, what is the SBA's definition of an FTE? I haven't really found is it just an employee, is it a job, or is it 2,080 hours? And then I have a follow-on question about the EIDL.
So I'll just say the question came up in another conversation. How do I count my employees? And what I took out of the answer coming from SBA was it doesn't matter. It's an FT. It's an employee. They aren't discriminating between part-time and full-time. I think where you get to understand the impact of your payroll, you know, full-time. If you have a bunch of part-time employees, your payroll is going to be smaller than if you have a bunch of full-time employees. So it's really payroll-driven and not employee-driven.
Yeah, it's more questioning relative to the forgiveness calculation, how people are looking at the forgiveness calculation, because it's a relative before and after calculation.
Right.
Can I add to that? I was on a webinar yesterday, and there was an accounting firm from Concord. They said 2 part-time employees at 20 hours, it's an equivalent. So if you had, you know, that's why it's not specific to one person, but it's the hours. And so if you have 2 part-time that come to 40 hours or 1 full-time, you know, just add up the hours, and that's what they're looking at.
I guess that's my question, because are we looking at, you know, 1 part-time person as 1 employee, or like you're saying, basically we're looking at the 2,080 hours as 1 employee? Because there's a distinction with, especially with some people reducing their full-time status, you know, that these people are going from certainly full-time to like 80%. Do we have to figure that into the calculation of an FTE? Or what SBA is considering for an employee?
A webinar I was on yesterday said that you look at 30 hours. So look at what adds up to 30 hours in a week. And then you figure out how many. So if you had 2 part-time employees at 15 hours, they would be 1 full-time employee, is how they told me to look at it, was figure out all your part-time employees for the week. So if you had 300 hours in the week, you would have, you know, then you would divide that by 30. So you'd have 10 full-time employees technically. Because our business is pretty much all part-time employees, and that's how they told me to do it on the webinar yesterday.
Okay, can SBDC confirm that at all, or are you all also hearing that?
That question has not come up. Yeah, I mean, that does make sense. And I think in some of these, the way forward, and then, we can reach out to SBA with that question specifically, and, you know, try to respond to you with the answer, if that's.
All right. Eric, do you have a question? Eric, are you there?
Wendy, we'll follow up with you on any of these questions, right?
Okay. I guess to wrap it up, unless anybody else has another question, okay, Beth, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I'm an administrative assistant for the Northern Gateway Chamber up in Lancaster, but I also own a seasonal inn. And at this time, we're trying, you know, we start working to get open. But if they're looking at our payroll doesn't really start, even though we start working in April, it doesn't start till May. So we haven't done anything because all these other businesses that are up and running need the money now. Whereas all of our reservations have been canceled for May because they were going to do weddings or whatever, and some in June, and now they're starting to, you know, they're canceling the reservations for July.
Yeah, so I would say you should definitely apply. I would attend our webinar next week. We are talking about how to come up with the calculation, but seasonal is one of the things that you can take into account. So instead of looking at, so when you come up with your average monthly salary, instead of looking at, a bank is asking for what you did last year for comparison, right? So for 2019, so you would just take, instead of a 12-month period, you're going to take the amount of time that you your high season or your your business? So would it be you're getting staff there before May to get the place ready, or is it early May through September, October? You figure out what that time period, and then you're going to divide that number of months to get an average monthly, and that's what they're looking at. Because last year at this time you would have been busy, you would have been making money, and now you're not, right? And that's what they're trying to gauge it on.
So you can, for seasonal businesses, you should look at your busy season to determine payroll.
And like landscapers, it's one period at a time. You know, it could be winter time that's someone's seasonal business, you know, when they're busy. Caterers, you know, again, is similar to, like you were just saying, the summer months can be their busiest time. And that's what
Well, I was on a call 2 days ago with Taylor Caswell with all the chambers. And I can't remember if they said it was the PPP or the EIDL, but they said people would sign up for it and they would get denied. And there was a glitch in their system and they'd have to go back and reapply.
That would be the EIDL, I think.
Okay.
Because you're going to go, if you're getting PPP, you go straight to your bank.
Okay.
That's true. I do have one follow-up question from somebody who's on our conference, but sent us a text instead. It says, we've received our PPP funds yesterday, looking for more guidance from SBA on exact computation of forgiveness rules. We applied for EIDL and received a general email, but not a confirmation number. I think you may have answered part of that.
I think it's very good they received an email, and the confirmation number that's up in the air. I've heard all kinds of stories around that. So I think the fact that they received something back is a good sign. With regard to going forward after you get a PPP, you do have to, you know, engage your payroll right away. Employees have to be on the payroll. And it's very important to keep documentation, because you will have to submit for forgiveness. You'll have to submit all the documentation needed to prove your expenses. Depending on how good you are at keeping records and that. So that's keeping in mind, you know, how do you use that loan properly for full forgiveness? Document.
So keep a paper trail, in other words.
Yeah.
Right.
And let me add to that. On the webinar I was on yesterday too, they said that it's like 7 weeks before you're going to be SBA these loans are just getting approved now. They haven't even dealt with like how the actual implementing the forgiveness part is. So I think that there'll be more guidance coming, which means more rules on how this actually is going to happen. But I would say, like Andrea said, if you have a payroll company using those payroll records, and you're going to have to document it and give it to the bank, which will then SBA is going to take care of it through the bank.
Okay.
Your loan, and the loan is going through the bank, right? So that's it, you know, it's going to reduce that amount of money owed.
Okay, and we have one final question. Do you anticipate another round for businesses like mine that will likely have an extended path back to full revenues?
I
mean,
I don't understand exactly. So there will be more funds coming available, but part of it is, at least on the call this at 12 o'clock with Representative Pappas, is there isn't enough funds right now for all the businesses that need it. So if people haven't applied yet, the good news is more money will get in that big pool of billions of dollars that they're going to be able to loan out. So that's very encouraging, because you know it's been first come first serve. So people have already applied, they're getting their funds, and then so there is though going to be more. It's going to take time, and right now where we're at, they don't, you know, Congress doesn't exactly know how long it's going to take. So it's probably, you know, we definitely have another stimulus package coming, right? And how they're still figuring out how much it's going to be in different areas. So I would say stay tuned, but definitely, you know, yesterday they were saying like it would be into week 7 before of getting your money, and they're counting it. Once you get the money deposited in your bank, that's starting that period of, your 8 weeks. So you need to start getting these employees ramping back up. You don't have to hire everyone that same first day, but you definitely need to ramp up to have people back on staff, or, even if they're working from home or not working from home, but you're paying them.
Is there a certain sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, and piggybacking onto this question, I think maybe what he's asking is, will there be a second opportunity if a business already got some help to get more help? If this drags on longer, to make them whole again. I think that's what he's referring to as well.
Well, I would say yes. But I can't, we haven't been told that, but.
Initially we were told that you can go back to the well. You can go back, and that's what we were told initially. And this is where I think a lot of us are on a learning curve, because there's new developments almost on a daily basis where we hear one thing and then we hear something else, or so initially we heard, yes, you could go back. I read something this morning that said, no, you can't go back. But I don't think that's the last word. I think there's going to be more programs coming out. And because how can you really predict what you need now when you don't know what the next 6 months brings?
Wendy, this is Mark. I'm sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
I had a follow-on question relative to the EIDL, and they specifically exclude farms. And my question is I am a CPA, and I have a client that is primarily a manufacturing business, but has a small farm, and didn't know if that, 15% of their business would exclude them from an EIDL.
I am not aware that, they would exclude you because you're doing some farming. I mean, the manufacturing business has its own EIN number and its own set of books, and
it's a singular corporation where a small division of the company is farm related.
I would apply. Can't hurt, right?
Right.
I have a client who is a farmer and also has another business, so he was only able to apply for one business. Say that the farm uses the product, what he grows in the other product. So he submitted his application, an EIDL loan for a cider business.
And the question was focused on this, but if somebody has more than one business, you can apply for each business.
That's good to know.
Wendy,
I think,
Wendy,
yeah.
Before you close, can I just ask for a little further, I guess, extending the topic about the PPP loan? So Julie and Andrew, you've talked about the fact that it's important to document the payroll aspect of it. Can you give direction on where a company should look for the best source of info on what are all the other expenses that are covered under the PPP loan?
So the SBDC is working on a template that should be going onto our website. And so that is going to be a good resource. And that is what we're going to use to do a webinar starting next week on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 1 p.m. So if you go to our website this afternoon, hopefully that template will be there. And we did it, there's tabs, it's an Excel spreadsheet on the bottom based on the different type of companies. So S and C Corps, then we have sole entrepreneur and multiple LLC, multiple or partnerships. So if you click on the different tab, it's gonna walk you through the calculation. And then I did recently see a bank template for a calculator that talked about the forgiveness. It's a bank in Concord, Lennard Bank. I don't know if you go to their website. So I don't want to share it because it's not our resource. Somebody gave it to me and I was looking at it. So that might be helpful to take a peek at if you go to their website. It's L-E-N Lennard.
I think there's a Y in it.
Ledyard.
Yeah, ledger, that's it, sorry. So that might be something useful, but I would definitely highly recommend, because the calculation, it can be a little, the regulations can be confusing, and the way people interpret it can be not always, you know, reading it the same way. I was on a conversation with somebody and she made over $100,000, and the way she was looking at it versus the way I was trying to explain it were different. So this calculation, the template that we have, shows you exactly how to take off the excess amount of the 100. So it's 120,000. It's taking off and subtracting the 20,000 so that you only have the 100, and dividing and coming up with a calculation. So you just plug and play.
Yeah. I would add that it's very specific. The PPP is just very specific. It's either rent or interest on your mortgage, not your home mortgage, but your, you know, if you own a business building, and your utilities. And sure, you know, when you take your payroll, average monthly payroll times 2.5, that may not cover your rent. You might have a, you know, the leftover, that 1/4 piece that isn't taken up by your payroll may not cover your full rent or your utilities, but that's the formula. It's very specific.
I did hear, sorry, Andrea, they may be changing that formula. Congress may increase that because the 25% or the other expenses is not enough, according to, you know, what Representative Pappas was hearing. So that's another potential change in the future. But you know, besides what Andrea was just saying, your health care is included, costs for health care and things like that. So not just payroll, but other expenses related to retirement, if you're putting in money for retirement for your employees, if that benefit. So
yeah.
Is there when you were looking at the PPP, is there a certain amount that you have to bring back in order to qualify for this? For us, for example, bringing back employees in the next 8 weeks, we would only be able to bring back a couple because the employees we need, the programs can't open because we're in shutdown, but we're still struggling to pay the employees that are currently there. Is it only good for people you bring back?
So you can do your payroll using the time frame that the rule calls for, that February to June 2019.
Yep.
You bring back the employees that will either come back, you want back. Everybody that doesn't come back, you've got an outstanding amount of loan that isn't going to be spent on payroll. That is the portion that remains the loan. That does not get forgiven. And I heard that the PPP is at 1%, deferred payments for 6 months, maybe up to a year, and is a 2-year payback. Okay. That might change depending on what bank you're dealing with. It might be as high as 2%, but that's what happens if you calculate your payroll and then you don't have the payroll expense after the clock starts ticking.
Okay.
If you can live with that as an option, then maybe it's still a good deal to do the PPP.
Okay.
Can you bring them back to do something else?
Sure.
Yeah, if you're paying them.
Yeah, they're an
Yeah.
employee.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as they're willing to do that something else, sure.
Okay.
Well, great information today, everyone. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. And thank.
Wendy, can I add
Sure.
just one thing? We have a comparison. We have a comparison chart, which we believe it's a link to a comparison chart that does get updated. We've been told. I'm happy to share that.
What is? Yeah. Can you tell us what the link is?
It's very
on
long.
our website, actually. If you go to our website and click on the coronavirus. So, and then number 1.
Okay.
No, yeah, there it is. No, 3.
Right. 3.
Number 3.
No, sorry. Perfect.
There we go.
Yeah, our website's excellent. You guys should completely check it out. And then the other thing, if you haven't already, you should absolutely attend the Skype meeting that SBA holds twice a day, once at 9, once at 2. Get on there and you can type in your questions into the chat. And Wendy, I can send you that link as well. And
Yep,
Well,
you
it's
can
on here too. Keep going down. It's on here.
Oh, it's on there. Great.
Yeah, if you go down further.
Yep, as a chamber and chambers across the state, we have been sharing SBDCs, we've been sharing SBAs and each other's. And that's why, as a group today, the New Hampshire Association of Chamber of Commerce Execs, that's why we're doing this with SBDC today, so we can share it with all of our chambers. Please check back frequently on the SBA website, on our chamber's website, GMSVCC.org. And we really appreciate your help and look forward to doing this again in the near future. One final note, are the webinars you're going to be doing Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, are they going to be the same webinar each day or a different topic each day?
So we're going to be like SBA is doing their consistent 9 and 2. We're going to do at least next week, the 3 days, it's going to be the same at 1 o'clock on the calculation.
Okay.
PPP calculation, and maybe we'll go into some other comparison, using the comparison chart and talking about some of the other programs. And then after that, we're going to roll out some other webinars.
Okay, if you can just keep in contact, send me those emails and I can shoot them out to everybody else. That would be
Okay,
great.
will do.
Appreciate it. Well, thank everyone for joining us today, and stay healthy and
Be safe.
stay calm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.